Hi, AMC fans. I'm excited for you to see me and Sofia Vergara in our new film, Hot Pursuit. Now enjoy AMC Movie Talk.
Hey everybody, happy Cinco de Mayo, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Sinead DeFries, and this is the daily show where we bring you the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us, as always, is your editor-in-chief for AMC Movie News, John Campia.
Greetings and salutations, everybody, and happy Cinco de Ocho.
Mayo.
Our guy Ray in here is a huge Bengals fan, so he was in the car the other day.
Cinco.
Yes, he said Cinco de Ocho.
Our guy Ray here is a big drinking fan.
Welcome to the show here, folks, coming up to you, of course, from the AMC Movie News headquarters here in Burbank, California, and we are so glad you decided to make us part of your day.
Also here is AMC's Mark Ellis.
Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. My favorite food is burritos with barbacoa in it. That's Spanish for shredded beef, I think.
Yes, you were right. And also here is AMC's Christian Harloff.
Says the guy wearing a cheeseburger shirt.
You can chop these up and make some shredded beef tacos.
Alrighty, on the heels of the announcement that director Josh Trank has departed the upcoming Star Wars anthology movie set for 2018 after Episode 8, comes a new report from The Wrap claiming that the 2018 film will be an origin story for the popular character Boba Fett. The report also claims the following interesting note. The film is set in a separate movie universe that is not associated with Star Wars, The Force Awakens, or upcoming episodes 8 and 9. Christian, what's your reaction to this report?
I don't like it. I think that, first of all, if they're going to do something that's separate from the universe, I think they should make it a Netflix series. I think that Daredevil just proved that this could work, and to be able to see, I think this all comes from that Simon Kinberg is a big fan of the Bounty Hunter Tales, that expanded universe book that came out a while ago, and to make a story along those lines, it was a lot of fun. It was a good book, and to see what Boba Fett could do as a bounty hunter could be a lot of fun. But I think it's a throwaway. I think that by the time after you get to episode 8, and then that's the next spin-off movie, look what they're doing with Rogue One. They're connecting the universe. They're playing into something that it's basically the prequel that we've always wanted to see. And with this one, unless they change it up, and maybe Max von Sydow does wind up being Boba Fett, and then you see a younger Boba Fett and kind of more of the things that we've learned about him throughout the years, and then we find out more, that could be cool. But I don't know why it doesn't tie in. I don't know if it's because they want to, maybe from what you say, John and Jedi Council, the multiple levels of canon, maybe they want to stay away from that for this one. They just want to tell a cool story here. If they're going to do 2 movies a year, then sure, then do this movie. But because I still think Han Solo is going to eat it, and I think that a young Han Solo would serve better. I think an Old Republic movie would serve better in this time period. But I don't know. Maybe they're going to get somebody like an Alex Garland or Jon Favreau to do this, and maybe they could have a good take on it. But I'm not thrilled.
Mark?
I'm confused as what they mean when they say it's not connected with The Force Awakens or anything else. Does that mean it's not taking place in the same time frame, or that none of those characters are going to have anything to do with this film? Because when I think of a Boba Fett movie, I think that he could have had an interaction with Han Solo somewhere along the lines before we saw them in Empire, or with Lando Calrissian before we saw them in Empire. I mean, when Han is blind in Return of the Jedi and he says, Boba Fett, where? It sounds like, he knows that name before. He's heard of this dude. So this guy clearly has some sort of reputation in the universe. Now, I know everybody loves Boba Fett because he's a mysterious character. That's why we were sold on him. And the warning with that is that when you take away that mystery and you get to know somebody, do we still want to hang out with you for 2 hours? Like when Sub-Zero takes his mask off, he's just a dude in Mortal Kombat. He's pretty boring. But when you have all that armor on, it's like, oh, it's kind of cool that we don't know that much about him. So to make a film based on Boba Fett sounds intriguing. I just worry that whoever they cast it is going to have a lot of burden to shoulder.
This story to me is very confusing. First of all, it says it's going to be a Boba Fett origin story. We've got the Boba Fett origin story. We've already seen it. They've already done that. We know exactly where he comes from, who he is, his genetic lineage and all that kind of stuff. We know the origin story. The claim that this is going to be in a separate universe, a separate movie universe, all I can assume is that they're just absolutely flat dead wrong. Right. Disney is not going to go out and say, okay, this is a different Boba Fett in a different reality. This is an Elseworlds movie. What? I believe this takes place in a different timeline. I'm sure the movie will take place much like some other anthology films where will take place that don't connect directly to the events of episodes 7, 8, and 9, but it's still in the same universe. This is still the same Boba Fett that we got in the, unfortunately, in the prequels, in the original series. This is going to be that same character doing the same things. So we've seen his origin. It's not going to be in a separate movie universe. And I still don't even know that I believe this is true. Yeah. You so nailed it on the head, Mark, about that whole thing. I think there's a little bit of that Master Chief thing in there too. It's like part of the reason everybody loves Master Chief so much is like you never see him.
Yeah, you don't have to realize that it's just a dude in armor.
Well, unless they do it like they did for Dredd. Now I don't know if they can get an actor to sign on the same way because like you never saw Dredd's face throughout the whole. And I thought that they did that well. Carl Urban did it well, but to have an actor sign on and you never see his face, it's a tough thing to get an actor to agree on.
We're just gonna cast your lips.
Yeah, that's it.
Really
or your
good.
voice. Yeah, but as far as the origin, the only thing that I will say is maybe it's the origin of how he became a bounty hunter and the fierce bounty hunter. Because you're right, we know how he became. Born, he's a clone, so we know that. But as far as how he actually became this ruthless, got this reputation, or because we've always been kind of rumoring maybe the Dread Pirate Roberts angle of it to where it was a mantle, and maybe you see that happen. But that would again tie into the universe. So it is a very confusing story.
And here's the other thing: the other reason I don't like this at all is because I don't like prequels. I don't even consider like Star Wars Anthology Rogue One a prequel. It's a different set of characters. Now, yes, it's in the same story timeline. It's just set at a different era or a different time that leads into other events.
But the events are prequelish as far as like
the events are prequel-ish. But when I think of a true prequel, I think of like the Phantom Menace, right?
Yeah.
Where look, we got Anakin, we got C-3PO, we got R2, we got Obi-Wan Kenobi. We see all of them when they're young. And the rumors are at some point we're going to get now let's do a movie about Han Solo when he's young. Now let's do a movie about Boba Fett when he was young. This is a big freaking universe. There are lots of stories to tell.
Right.
Stay away from these. I don't need to see any more when they were young. I almost swore.
Yeah.
When they were young, stupid movies. I don't need them. Do what you're doing with Rogue One. That sounds fascinating.
Right.
A young Boba Fett movie. I'm not interested.
What Bob can be, though, is a conduit to more places in this galaxy. Because if you're a bounty hunter, you're going all over the place. So we could meet new planets. We can meet an entirely different cast of characters. I'm not saying that you need any of the Skywalkers or Han Solo to pop up in a Boba Fett solo movie, but it would help. Yes, sometimes I slip, and I still call him Boba Fett because I'm from the South. That's how we pronounce it there. Bob.
All right, Bob. Listen, but the other thing going
he
off
prefers Robert.
Yeah, by the way. Going off Robert Fett.
Robert Fettersworth III.
Everything you just said, though, fits so well into a Netflix series because we can paint that gangster type feel in there. You can see the underworld of Star Wars, and you can paint that for 12 episodes and introduce. That's what they were going to do originally with that series they were working on with George Lucas for a long time. That live action series was supposed to take place in the underworld, and you see all these different characters that weren't the characters that we knew. So it could work in that timeline, introducing new characters.
All right, let's move on to the next topic.
It's been confirmed that the surprise hit action film John Wick is returning for a sequel. According to the studio, the entire creative team is returning for the sequel, which includes Keanu Reeves, directors David Leitch and Chad Stahelski, and screenwriter Derek Kolstad. Lionsgate President of Acquisitions and Co-Productions Jason Constantine said the following: "With such tremendous fan and critical support for John Wick, we knew that there was still so much more of this story to tell. We are thrilled that Keanu, David, and Chad have re-teamed with us and promised to bring audiences even more excitement the second time around. The film will also be a sequel as opposed to a prequel, as some have speculated, as Lionsgate described the film as this. In the follow-up to last year's adrenaline-fueled revenge and redemption thriller, legendary hitman John Wick is back. Mark, should Lionsgate be making a John Wick 2?
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking he's back. Yeah, this is exciting, man. I mean, this was such a fun action film. It came out of nowhere for me, and watching it, I got that throwback feel that you just don't get enough. It felt like a late 80s, early 90s action movie. It didn't take itself too seriously. It had fun with the source material, and there actually is some lore in the John Wick universe, particularly with that hotel where he came to. So I want to see more based on that hotel. Now, the fact that it isn't a prequel, I'm happy about because it would have made John's head explode if we had to talk any more about prequels. Sequel, I like that. We don't have to go back to before John Wick was the John Wick from the first film. I want to know who else is possibly going to mess with John Wick. Even the bad guys in the John Wick universe know you don't kill that guy's dog because he's going to come after you. Who would possibly tangle with him now? This is a great opportunity to cast a really sweet villain.
Boba Fett.
Robert Fett is going to be the bad guy.
Robert Fett is the third.
We talked about this yesterday. Dennis and I did a quick reaction video to this when the news dropped, and I could not be happier. I wanted another one of these. It was such a surprise. I had gotten to the point where I no longer expected anything from a Keanu Reeves film. I admit it. I was at that point. And then comes John Wick. And it just delivered on everything that trailer promised and then some. It was just so much fun to watch. It was so brainless and yet mythology building. You're right. I said from the beginning, I want a Hotel Continental movie. I want a movie about that hotel for hitmen, the stories that could come out of there. But I was really thrilled to hear that. Oh, no, don't worry, folks. This ain't no prequel. We're not going to talk about how he became the boogeyman. We're moving forward. But Dennis brought up a great question, though. He said, one of the things, and I'm paraphrasing Dennis here, but one of the things that was so great about John Wick and that got us as the audience into it's like, yeah, John, you go kill those. You get there. You don't let them off the hook, blah, blah, blah. Is that they got us to buy into that dog, man. They got us to buy into that. I'm getting mad thinking about it. And they killed that dog. And because they set that up so perfectly that everything that John Wick did, every horrible thing that John Wick did, you're like, totally justified. Totally justified. Right. That's right. So Dennis brought up the point is, okay, you go into the sequel. He was fueled by vengeance, pure vengeance. What's it going to be now? Is he just going to be on a mission to save the community center from land developers, or like you gotta come up with an angle to really make that go? So you're saying
if John Wick has a cat, it doesn't work as well.
Right. Exactly. So I'm so excited about this. I really am. It will be interesting to see what they make his driving engine in the next one. But I couldn't be happier.
I can't wait for this movie. But I don't think that means that we won't see the hotel. I think that's what the story could be about. The story could be all about the hotel, and maybe there's something he's back on the business. Maybe he set up another connection somehow, because the bottom line is, yes, we cared a lot about that dog. We absolutely did.
Oh my God, I did.
Just give us some kind of connection for us to go, okay, and then that's it.
Maybe they can pull a Marvel and figure out a way to bring the dog back.
Or anything.
You get a dog prequel. Right. I just want to know about the dog going across the country with a cat. Let's call it Milo and Otis. Let's tie those two universes together finally.
But it's the thing is, with Keanu Reeves, I'm with you. Like, I wasn't necessarily excited about it because he's had a lot of misses. But when he gets it right, it's not only because it's the right role for him, it's the team that he's working with knows what he can do.
Yeah.
These directors and this writer knew what they had and knew what they could get out of him, because this guy's 50 years old and it looked like he was 25. Right? And they know what they were able to do with him. And this goes back to a conversation I think we had last week when we talked about Matthew Vaughn coming back for Kingsman.
Or not.
Or not. And he doesn't seem to come back to a lot of, he didn't come back for Kick-Ass. And I still think that it missed a lot from him not being there. And I think it would have missed a lot if these guys didn't come back and they would have done a John Wick without those guys and the writer.
Yeah, it would have been a mistake.
It's missing it. I mean, yeah, you have Keanu Reeves and people would get excited about it because it's John Wick 2, but you don't have that same kind of special feel because of what this entire team did. So the fact that they're all excited about it, and it seems like they're all just, it's not just because it wasn't a mega hit. They want to do it because they had fun doing it. And there's more story to tell, they think, with John Wick. So I'm on board.
All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Sinead's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down. Then Mark, Christian, and myself are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Sinead, what do we got?
As Avengers Age of Ultron continues to thrill audiences and dominate the box office, Chris Evans and several of his co-stars were recently asked about the upcoming Captain America Civil War. Evans suggests that the film is really a lead into the next Avengers films. Evans said the following: "It's the jump off into the next Avengers Infinity War. So Cap 3 is going to be set up of the real battle, so there are a lot of people." In the same interview, Mark Ruffalo, who plays Dr. Banner, aka the Hulk, confirmed that he will not be in the film. John, do you buy or sell Chris Evans' comments about Civil War?
Okay, let's be very clear here. I'm so excited about this movie. Can't wait to see the movie. The movie's going to be awesome, blah, 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 blah. But I sell the comment. And I'm hoping he misspoke, because if Captain America Civil War is simply going to just be a setup film for the next film, then you're missing a huge opportunity to just focus on what this movie can be. I'm going to hold on to the hope that he just misspoke, but if we're just talking about the comment, do I buy or sell the comment? I sell the comment. Christian?
I buy the comments only because I think basically saying the same thing, though, because I think that what he meant was that this will be the setup, the events. It's like, it's not a standalone film. It's an event that once all these big, huge things happen in Civil War with all these characters, you're going to be ready for the next Avengers. And the setup, because of the events that do happen and because of all the characters that you'll be focused on, it's I understand what I think I understand what he was saying as more. It's not just like, oh, this is just kind of a throwaway to set up for the next movie, is where I think some people could take that. But I think it's because there's so much going to be happening. And one of the issues I had with the Avengers was that I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but I just didn't feel that there was so much set up to this next one, and it didn't have to be, because the Avengers was its own movie, but there were still events we knew were coming because of the announcement that Marvel made. That, hey, we're getting Civil War. Now, if they had never made that announcement, maybe it's another conversation, but they did. Just the way that they announced Infinity War. So I'm glad that they're announcing, hey, look, there's going to be events that happen in this movie that will further their storyline in Infinity War. So I buy it.
See, I sell the comments because I think that that's already implied. I think that we all know, we're familiar enough with the MCU that we know that when they make a movie, there's going to be little fingerprints that we can go back and say, oh, remember, then that's what started, and we saw that follow up in the next movie. So we don't need to be spoon-fed that, oh, this is going to be a setup for Infinity War. I was really excited that Civil War was going to be a standalone film where we get that story between Cap versus Iron Man. Black Panther's going to be hanging out. Maybe Spider-Man hangs out. So I don't need to know that this is a setup for Infinity War. I get that. I was there. I saw when they set up the slate of films, like, oh, then this movie, then this movie, then this movie. I would actually prefer if this was just a sequel to Cap, if this was Cap 3, as opposed to Cap Civil War, which is something totally different. That is two of our heroes going against each other. You can tell me that story for 2.5 hours, and you don't need to give me that much setup for Infinity War, because I know that's coming already.
All right, what's next?
As some of you may know, True Detective director Cary Fukunaga is currently gearing up to bring a 2-part remake of Stephen King's It to the big screen. And now it looks like we may have our new demonic clown, Pennywise. According to reports, the Maze Runner and We're the Millers star Will Poulter is in talks to take over the role once played by Tim Curry. It is described as follows. A promise made 28 years ago calls 7 adults to reunite in Derry, Maine, where as teenagers they battled an evil creature that preyed on the city's children. Unsure that their losers club had vanquished the creature all those years ago, the 7 had vowed to return to Derry if it should ever reappear. Now, children are being murdered again, and their repressed memories of that summer return as they prepare to do battle with the monster lurking in Derry's sewers once more. Christian, would you like the casting of Will Poulter as Pennywise?
Yeah, I would buy it, and I'll tell you the first reason I buy it is because of Cary Fukunaga, because if he had anything to do with some of the casting during True Detective, job well done, sir.
Yeah. Not bad.
Not bad. So and he ultimately shot like a 12, 13 episode. It was a movie. That was a 10, whatever it was. That was a full movie, and they shot it like a full movie, and you could tell from what he did. So I have confidence in that guy. And as far as Poulter goes, I like this guy since Son of Rambo, since he was a little kid. He's
good
got,
call.
He's got
a really good flick.
He's got a lot of talent, man, and he can get intense. And don't just judge him because of he's always just been in comedies. And We're the Millers, and then in Maze Runner he was kind of annoying. He can get intense, and I bet you he can hit that Pennywise. When I read this morning, I went, yeah, I could see him getting there, and I could see with the director. I think this could be actually really fun.
I absolutely buy this completely. You put him in a movie like We're the Millers, where he was the smallest name in that film. He's the one name everyone went, who, whatever, and he pretty much stole that movie with he was the highlight, I thought, for myself. And he's also got, a lot of people forget, he's got this little movie coming out called The Revenant. That's probably going to be winning some Academy Awards. And the fact that you get that director who's like, you're good enough for me, and bring that kid in. And then once again, you point out, Cary brings him in too. The Tim Curry performance of Pennywise are large shoes to fill, but I think this kid can do it. So for me, it's a buy.
You make a great point about Will Poulter's acting career. You make a great point about True Detective. Sinead read off the concept. I buy that. And I just look at this kid's face and I buy it. I mean, look at his face. He looks like he could be a horrific clown. He's not a bad looking kid, but when you put him in that makeup, I mean, look at that. It's terror. Do you want to see that? If you're a kid dressed up as a clown, it is one of the most terrifying. It can be one of the most terrifying stories that you could possibly tell somebody. And I think with an actor with this chops, putting on that makeup, it's going to be horrifying. I hope Christian doesn't see it. That's how scary I think this movie is going to be.
You know what? Can we bring that picture up again for a second? Let's bring up that picture of Pennywise. And not many people know our own Amy Rose Eisenbach is absolutely paralyzed with fear of clowns. Wow. So Ray, quick job. Can you take this image and email it to Amy Rose with the subject line, important movie talk note? And then just put that picture. That'd be awesome. Okay.
Oh, that's just fun.
What's next?
Speaking of We're the Millers, Sean Anders, the writer of the film, as well as the director of films such as Horrible Bosses 2 and Sex Drive, has apparently just signed up to direct Jennifer Aniston in the pseudo-Mean Girls follow-up, Mean Moms. The original Mean Girls was based on the 2002 book Queen Bees and Wannabes. Mean Moms will be based on the follow-up book Queen Bee Moms and Kingpin Dads, which is officially described as asking what happens to queen bees and wannabes when they grow up. Mark, buy or sell the sounds of Mean Moms?
Oh, I love the sounds of this, especially when you include Jennifer Aniston in the cast. I think she's one of the most talented actresses. She can do comedy, she can do drama. This is great. You always want to know what happens to those moms behind closed doors, the ones that try to be the cool mom. Like, no, I want you kids to drink. Just do it around me. I can't wait to see what they do with this. I'm definitely buying it.
Christian.
No, I sell it. I also you lost me on Horrible Bosses too, as far as writing goes. I think the thing is, Jennifer Aniston's been on a roll with even We're the Millers. She was funny in that. The movie was better than it should have been. And Cake, she was coming off of maybe a role I still think she should have been nominated for. But sometimes she's really hit and miss with these comedies, and it's not her. She's always talented, but sometimes she's like, I've seen her do that a million times. It's missing Tina Fey. I sell it because it's missing Tina Fey. Mean Girls had that stamp. You felt Tina Fey all over Mean Girls. You felt that, and I think it's going to be missing from this just because it's another novel written by the same author. Tina Fey missing is the reason I'm selling this.
I am going to buy a very thin margin. I'm going to buy it. I think when I read up more on the book itself, and it's asked some very interesting. I myself am not a parent. Only one of us on this panel are. But when it talks about, if you're a parent, it's like you've got a mom across the street who's helping their kid write hurtful emails to other kids. You got a parent coach at the high school team or on your grade school, your son's team who's yelling at your kid. Like, how do you deal with those situations? I thought it sounds interesting. I'm unclear if how directly tied to Mean Girls this is. My impression is that it's a completely separate thing. Just that kind of deals with some of the same themes, but with adults instead of kids. And if that's the case, I'm intrigued. So by a thin margin, while I agree with everything both Mark and Christian are saying, I'm going to give it a buy.
If it's based on Queen Bee Moms and Kingpin Dads, do we get to see Wilson Fisk make a cameo in this?
You hurt my daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Please write.
Popular comedian Louis C.K. has apparently just signed a deal to write, direct, and star in a new feature film comedy called I'm a Cop. The film follows a depressed middle-aged man who is a volunteer police officer living in the shadow of his mother, a highly decorated retired officer. When she dies, her continued influence forces him to become a real police officer, which is something he never wanted to be. John, do you buy or sell the sounds of I'm a Cop?
I am, surprisingly enough, I'm going to sell this. I love Louis C.K. His stand-up is some of the best, most poignant, sharp in the world. And every once in a while when he pops up in films or television shows, he can actually be pretty good. But this sounds a little bit too much like Let's Be Cops. I know that's just playing on the vernacular of the actual titles. But also, I feel like any project that Louis C.K. is in could be started with the summary reading. The film follows a depressed middle-aged man who, ... The next Louis C.K. movie, the film follows a depressed middle-aged man who, ... I would really love to see Louis C.K. do something that we're not expecting him to do. This sounds like something he would do, and it might end up being brilliant, but just because I kind of feel like this is all ground we've tread on before, for now I'm going to mildly sell it. Mark?
I'll buy pretty much anything that Louis C.K. is involved in. I think he's that talented. I think he's the voice of a generation as far as comedy goes, and when you watch his show, Louis, he nails not only the comedic aspects of the life of a comedian, but he also gets the dramatic take too. And with this, I think you can have some of that. It can be a little darker. Now, the fear with something like this is that it turns into like a Paul Blart situation.
I don't
or
think
it turns into even like an arrest the Seth Rogen mall cop movie, right? Where it was darker and it tried to be comedic and it didn't work. But with somebody like Louis C.K., I just don't think that he's going to tackle a project that he's writing and directing and starring in unless he has full confidence that he can do it his way. And as far as his range goes, I don't know that he has a lot of range as an actor. And I think he's aware of that. I think that when you hear depressed middle-aged man, that's who Louis C.K. is going to play. When he pops up in movies, that's who he plays, even in small roles. He's not going to be playing the Vision anytime soon, okay? He's going to be playing what he can do well, and I think that's a credit to him knowing what his boundaries are. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to buy this.
Christian?
I buy it just because of Louis C.K. If you put that premise out there for, and it's like you said, Kevin James or anybody else, Melissa McCarthy. No, I've seen her do it too many times. But I don't think you'll fall into that Seth Rogen cop movie or the Paul Blart movie because it's Louis C.K. and he's a lot more clever that way too. And as far as his range goes, let's not forget that it was the same character, I guess, so it's not too much range. But as far as his acting chops, I should say, American Hustle, he was great.
Great point.
He was really good in American Hustle. The guy can act. He wants to direct. I believe he's directed a lot of Louis.
Louis, I mean, he edits the show. Yeah, he does everything.
He does everything. So because of him and because of what he's doing, and he doesn't venture into movies so much. And is this the first feature film that he's directed? Is this?
I believe it
maybe
would
so.
be.
So that's why I'm okay with him doing the press thing. I don't want him to see his next. I don't want to see 5 movies of the same thing over and over again. I like to see him switch up and do something. But to be his first one out the gate as a director, do what you do. Hit it out of the park with the first one. It's Louis C.K. Cast well. He does that well. Put in your friends that are funny in there, which he will do. Cut costs and get the funny guys in there. Chris Rock will probably pop up in there, and his friends will pop in there. And I think it'd be a lot of fun.
I'd love to see Louis C.K. play like a Ukrainian mobster. I don't know why. I just think he would do. I just think he would crush something like that. I really do. I think he would crush it. All right, folks, we reached that part of the show for Mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address on the show, you can email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. So, Sinead, what's in the mailbag today?
Jack Wickham writes, "Hello, AMC. Me personally, I'm cautiously optimistic about Terminator Genisys despite the spoiler in Trailer 2. But my question is, if Terminator Genisys underperforms or bombs this summer, could Paramount cancel their plans for the new trilogy?"
Yeah, Paramount has some very ambitious and aggressive plans for the for the Terminator franchise at this point. They have some big plans. However, to quote the great Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And if Paramount takes one in the mouth, if they release Terminator Genisys and it makes $28 million on its opening weekend and ends up losing the studio $70-80 million, Paramount ain't going to be getting in line to make the next one. Those plans will get cut. The film that I always go back to with stuff like that is the studio had these big plans for a full trilogy of Aragon, the one about the dragons. Remember that? They were going to make a full trilogy, and they put out the first one, and they had Jeremy Irons and John Malkovich, and that movie was so bad and bombed so hard, and they set it up at the end for the sequel, but it didn't matter. The studio lost tons of money. They're not anxious to lose more money. They kill their plan. So if it bombs, and I don't think it will. I think Terminator Genisys will do just fine. But if it does bomb, those plans go right out the window, Christian.
I think that it's got to do a little bit more. I mean, obviously, bombs, no way. But I think it's got to perform well. And I don't think it has to have a great critical response, but I think the fans have to like it.
Yeah.
I think if the fans see this, because a lot of critics might be like, nah, they've lost it. They don't know what they're doing. But the fans come out and say, look, I enjoyed it. I want to see another one. Then, they'll make another one. I mean, look, John Wick got made. Different franchise, smaller movies, smaller budgets, but because the fans and people really responded to it, and it wasn't a mega hit. But if you have Terminator out there, which people want a good Terminator, we haven't had one since Judgment Day. We haven't had a really good Terminator. Do I necessarily think that that's going to be this movie? No, but I hope that it's good enough that they will get another one, that they maybe can do some more, make some improvements on it. I hope that this spoiler thing from the second movie was, like you said, that it wasn't necessarily a spoiler, that it's just a plot point that pushes us into something else. I don't think that's the case, but I hope it is, because I want to be shocked. I want to love this movie because I want to see it go farther, because I thought the Sarah Connor Chronicles had some really good episodes too, and it furthered the mythology. So I want to see this mythology furthered in a good way. So fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Mark.
Jack, I'm with you. I'm cautiously optimistic about this film, but even more so than how it performs at the box office. Yes, of course it has to make money in order for the 2 sequels to get greenlit. But I think when you make a point about the mythology, I think the mythology has to make sense, and it has to be digestible in some capacity, because they really started to get wonky the last couple movies. And so it looks like they're trying to bring it back to what Terminator was really all about from the first 2 films. If they can keep that, and they don't have to keep it simple. You don't have to cater to us like we're simpletons, but you have to make it to where we can appreciate what's happening and want to go see a sequel and be like, what's going to happen next, as opposed to how are they going to ruin this time travel element even more. You got to make it cool for us to want to go see more.
All right, folks, listen, not only do we like to take your questions via email, we love to take your questions via Twitter as well. So if you've got a Twitter account, tweet out a question to us. Just make sure you include the hashtag AMC Movie Talk. That way it shows up on our feed. So, Sinead, what's in the Twitter sphere today?
Marcine tweets, "What's the situation with The Irishman, directed by Martin Martin Scorsese. I'd love to see De Niro, Pacino, and Pesci on screen together.
Yeah, I was fascinated by this when I first heard about it a while ago, because to see these guys on screen together again would be, and we've never seen all three of them together, but we've obviously seen De Niro with Pesci and stuff like that. Pesci hasn't been doing a lot, but this sounds great. But I mean, I came in, I remember I talked to Christian this morning, and I said, I don't know anything about this. Do you? What have you been able to find out?
I looked up, last thing I saw was I guess I don't think Pacino and Scorsese have ever worked together. So the last thing I saw was a Pacino interview from like October where he said they're still talking about it. But then we looked at IMDb and it's not even listed in Scorsese's credits. So of upcoming projects. I hope it happens. That you talk about the big three in Star Wars. That's the big three of gangster films, man. I want to see that happen. So fingers crossed.
Mark, is there something you want to see?
Yeah, Scorsese's got to knock my Jabba the Hutt standalone Star Wars film out of the park first, and then he can get to work on this. Yeah, of course I want to see this. It'd be maybe a last ride for De Niro and Pesci and Scorsese all together. When you throw Pacino in the mix too, it's like, yes. All
right, what's next?
Jessica Beardsley tweets, "Greetings from Canada. Just wondering, when they say domestic box office, is that just the USA?"
It's kind of funny. It's a misnomer. I do that too, because when you say the term domestic, you would think it just means within your borders of the USA. It's actually not. Domestic box office actually includes Canada. It's Canada and the US, as in many things, Canada and the US are just kind of seen as the same thing. So yeah, when they're actually talking about domestic, sometimes some places more accurately, but still not quite accurate, will say North American box office as opposed to domestic. But even that's not accurate because it doesn't count Mexico, which is indeed a fact part of North America. So
is Mexico part of North America?
Yes.
Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. I got some study to do.
So, to the best of my knowledge, unless you guys know differently, actually, when they say domestic, that includes the Canada and the US. You guys?
No, that's it.
Well, there we go. We learned something new today, everybody. Listen, that'll do it for us. That's all the time we got today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Cinco de Mayo. Listen, folks, don't forget, lots of great films playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all of your theater, showtime, and of course, your movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this episode, look in the description of this video, and you can find a link to our podcast feed. For those of you who listen to our podcast regularly, you'll notice that our podcasts haven't been up and running. We had a technical issue. The podcast should be up and streaming again here any day now, so you can check out the podcast feed there. And don't forget, most important of all, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Keep up to date on all the great shows happening here on AMC Movie News. I want to thank, first of all, the guy sitting at the table with me, sitting over here, Mr. Mark Ellis. Mark, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Joss Whedon. That's my new handle. At 5150 Ellis on Twitter and Instagram. This weekend, I'll be at the Acme Comedy Club in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Christian, you've heard of that, right?
No.
The just mentioned Mr. Christian Harloff. Christian, where can people find you?
I will be on Twitter asking him more about questions about the Black Widow. But check out AMC Jedi Council, hashtag AMC Jedi Council. We'll be talking about everything. Bob Fett, Josh Trank, everybody that you guys want to talk about. Make sure you get those questions in so we can talk about it. Christian Harloff, Twitter, Instagram, the whole deal.
And of course, our lovely host today, who, if you use Periscope, you should follow her on Periscope and find out what I like to do with my Krispy Kreme donuts, only on Sinead DeFries's Periscope. Sinead DeFries, where can people find you online?
That sounded so wrong.
What does John do with the donuts?
Gets to do what I do with the donuts.
Time to make the donut, Sinead.
Whoa, for you special Periscope users. That's the new trending hashtag. Time to make the donut, Sinead. What does that
Spicy.
mean?
All right. Well, I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at Sinead DeFries and at that'sosinead.com.
And you can follow me on the various social media networks. Follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, just at John Campia. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for watching us today. And until next time, bye-bye.